Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Knecht, president of Universal Accounting Center. And for more than 3 decades now, I've been working with accounting professionals to help them successfully build, operate, and run building accounting services that are profitable so that they can actually be successful and get paid what they're worth. As a host of this show, I actually have on each and every week experts, individuals that I bring to the show to actually share with us insights on things that we can be focusing on to build the premier accounting firm. It's where we actually have conversations about tech stacks, training staff, marketing, selling, onboarding clients, client retention, and so much more. And I'm excited to have on the show today Ken LaCroix. He happens to be someone that is really interesting to me because I believe we have very similar philosophies as it relates to CFO and advisory services. Ken has been a guiding force and helping businesses through rapid growth, restructuring, mergers, and acquisitions throughout his career. He focuses on leveraging technology investments to increase productivity, scale, and business value. He has owned businesses, negotiated their purchase and sale, and served as the hired gun for investors, private equity firms as well. He actually has focused on, in his latest turn, the fractional CFO world and outsourcing accounting concepts for the past decade. As a result, he understands integrating finance, operations, and technology to drive growth and enterprise value. Ken has been guiding businesses through rapid growth, restructuring, mergers, and acquisitions throughout his entire career. So Ken, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Roger. Great to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun because I think what we're going to be discussing today is a common thing that many firms are struggling with. They're regularly faced with this challenge of integrating into the compliance work that they're offering this CFO and advisory type service, this value add that so many clients would like to receive from the accounting profession, but too often we fail to deliver. So I'm excited to have this conversation. So let me give my audience some context as to a little bit of who you are. What got you into the CFO and advisory space?
Well, I sort of consider myself the anti-accountant. Did really well in accounting 101, advanced accounting, really loved the theory of accounting, did my 2 years of indentured servitude to get my CPA work. But I've just been much more of a cost accountant, a CMA, much more than a CPA ever. It just rings truer to me. And when we're talking about our client base, which is companies in the $5 to $100 million space, they're not public. They don't have the true need for the financial statements that are normally produced, but they have a true need to understand their business. And so I just always found myself explaining numbers to business owners, explaining numbers to my superiors. And I just always was able to do it in a way that made it more enjoyable for them and more efficient. So about a little over 10 years ago, I decided to jump out as a consultant on my own, jump out on this side of the desk, if you will, use all my history of being a controller, vice president of finance, CFO, chief bottle washer, janitor, whatever it takes at some of these smaller companies with scarce resources, and decided to sort of spread my knowledge among a bunch of different potential business owners. So that's how I got here. And that's why the focus on technology, because we were always constrained by cash, always constrained by resources, never had enough people for these growing businesses. So technology has been a big part of how I've been able to be reasonably successful or very successful over the last few years.
I love it. We're going to have a lot of fun with this conversation because one of the things that you said a moment ago really resonated with me. You were speaking about how you were communicating the numbers, what they meant, what they were trying to say. And honestly, I think too often as accounting professionals, we just don't realize the role that we play as storytellers, just taking the information that's being communicated via the language of accounting to the business owners, but yet it's just in a foreign language. They don't get it. And so we're that translator, that one that's trying to take this narrative and put it into context so that they can make informed business decisions. And being that storyteller, we have to make it interesting. We have to make it compelling. We've got to make it so that they see value in these numbers that we're obviously using all the time. So I'm curious, would you see yourself as a storyteller?
That's the secret sauce, Roger. That's it right there. You nailed it. And also, be very aware of jargon. And I like to say that I have about 45 seconds of any leader's time to get the point across. Most people book an hour for a financial meeting, and they've lost them within the first minute or two. Starting at the top left, driving down to the bottom right is not a good strategy for interpreting financials. Most of the information that's on a financial statement, the leadership already knows. They were there when it happened. They're looking for those 3 or 4 things, those nuggets that really need to be focused on. And then you can have an actual conversation around what those 3 things are. If we get to the highlights, the 3 things, if we get that taken care of, then we can go back and talk about gross profit versus last month or last year. But in general, we need to pick those three things, drive them home, and then create that discussion, extend the story, if you will, around what that looks like.
I appreciate the fact that you've now identified that there are these three or so things that need the attention. One of the things that I think is lacking from these conversations is exactly that. What of all these things that are on the table in front of us are the three things that we need to be discussing that need our attention, and more importantly, we need to address and actually make some actionable items around. And if you, as the accounting professional, can bubble to the surface those three things that need to be the topic of discussion, you're doing a great job. So that's really important. Now, the other thing that you also brought up in that kind of introduction, that transition as you were from being in the accounting space over to your firm, is you brought up technology. What is it that you're referring to when you bring up technology and how it's relevant to the services you're providing in that CFO space?
So accounting departments historically have been very manual. Green eye shades, green paper, green pencils, just a
Don't
spreadsheet.
forget the armband.
Yeah, I see armband as well. Um, but a spreadsheet, right? We still call them spreadsheets, which is, a 4 column, 12 column. I'm old enough to remember using those, place where you spread the information across columns. So um, the nature of accounting has been so manual. And for us, we need data that's more granular, more timely, and basically, we need it to be instant. And the moment it's not instant, it loses its value for decision making. So rather than think about people entering data into a system, these days almost everything is digital. If it's not digital, find a way to find the digital piece of it and keep
Yeah.
it digital. And so many accounting departments, accountants, bookkeepers, staff, they think their value is in the hours they put in inputting the data into a system. And in reality, that's not the value add at all. The value is once the data is entered into the system, thinking about the analysis of it, thinking about what it means, thinking about what's missing, thinking about what it adds, thinking about how we can get the data earlier and sooner to get information out to the team to make better decisions, not waiting for a month end close. We have conversations about closing weekly. And again, people throw up their hands and they say that's absolutely impossible. And we love to have those conversations about how to introduce the possible into those impossible thoughts.
Ooh, I'm loving this. One of the things that I would like to add to what you just shared is, first of all, accuracy does matter, garbage in, garbage out. So there is value in what we're doing as we're entering that information. But really the value, however, is at the back end. And you pointed it out as to it's the real-time nature of the numbers. So much today, we have to be dealing with what's happening right now. And so for us to actually, as accounting professionals, presume that if we're preparing for a meeting, that we're going to take information from the last month end and it's 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, it's just old data at that point. And so what's more relevant is what's going on right now live. And so the more timely the information, the better it is. But then the big part is the application of the data. It's refining it down from data into information, and then really the knowledge that we have through the reports that we're able to glean from all this data. So I'm curious, as you're working in this CFO space, advising clients, working with them at this higher level, you're very keen to point out that accounting firms at the compliance level typically struggle to transition into this realm. But yet we're hearing from AICPA and have for years at conferences this whole intent of providing more value, engaging more with our clients, realizing that maybe AI is going to automate a lot of the data entry side of things, and we need to engage with the client more at this high level. What is that I can't even say it. What is that transition from that compliance work to CFO like, and why is it a struggle for the accounting professional to actually maybe have that mindset shift?
So you're very correct, Roger, to point out the the incredible shift it takes. And I'll sum it up in just a few words. What if I'm wrong?
Mm,
So when we ask people that are compliance oriented, preparation oriented, reconciliation oriented, to leave that world of certainty and move into that world of uncertainty,
ah,
it's sort of a hidden thing. People think, oh, well, I'll just put it in a spreadsheet. It's no different than any other schedule. It looks the same. But now we're asking them, what will sales be? What will margins be? What will things be? And while it's pretty easy to predict rent because there's a 5-year contract, predicting sales next week or cash flow receipts next week, it requires a fair amount of sort of analysis, judgment, and being wrong. You're just going to be wrong. So it's a shift from being paid for being right, which is what the CPA firm has always existed to do. They're paid to be right. And now we're asking them to be paid, in essence, to be wrong, but just
Yeah.
slightly less wrong than no estimate at all. So, it's a big mind shift. And we talk to CPA firms all the time. We help them implement this technology. We talk to them at conferences. And even if the leader understands it, even the leader comes back and says it's time to implement, these technologies, these things looking forward, the big change management is in the staff. It's in the layers of management, getting them to buy into it and recognizing. And I'm not putting anyone down when I'm talking about this. I'm talking about recognizing sort of where they are. And I think it's important that you recognize the work it takes to allow them to move from compliance to estimation, from accounting to finance, from knowing everything to, in essence, knowing nothing, but knowing more than most other people. And so it's valuable.
There are a number of things in there that I'd like to highlight. Let me start, first of all, with agreeing that the idea of accounting needs to move more and more away from the historical and move more and more into the planning, the future. And there's a creative component to that. And that's where I think it's a little bit scary for some, but it is the fun part where you get to be creative. And that's where you're looking at pro formas and budgets and forecasts. And that creative side begs the question of how good do we know our historical that we can confidently predict the future? How confident are we that the numbers we're coming up with are going to be right within a margin of error of 5%, 10%, 20%? How close can we hit that mark? And what it really depends on is numbers that are outside of the accounting model. It's leading and lagging indicators. The leading indicators are the pre-accounting numbers that we may not be first paying attention to, but it's the number of how many dials and leads and contacts and sales conversations may be going on within the customer's business model. It's the inventory that's going on in the business to suggest, do we have the means to actually produce the widgets that we're supposed to be producing? These things are, I think, that exciting part that you're referring to, where we're stepping out of that comfort of what we know because it's historical to what it could be. And I liked how you were describing it. Learn the turnkey process for starting and building a successful accounting business. It's in this course that you'll actually experience 4 specific trainings. Part 1, your business plan, everything you need to know to get started. Part 2, how to price your services, the pros and cons of different methods and the best way to price your services that are both profitable and professional. Marketing and selling your services so that you can actually be top of mind, but more importantly, how to actually be seen as a trusted strategic advisor. And last of all, mapping it all out. 5 principles in running a profitable business so that you can be both competent and confident in the services you're providing. Learn now what it is you can be doing to start and build your own successful accounting, bookkeeping, or tax business. Go to the episode description and there get the information you need to take advantage of this today. So you brought up also at the end there the challenge that oftentimes takes place within the accounting firm as we start to move into offering these services with the rest of the staff, them catching the vision, them seeing their role in it. What can you say as to how it relates to the employees within the accounting firm and getting them on board with this additional service that we're perhaps providing?
Well, I love your use of the word creativity because that naturally speaks to a different part of the brain.
Yeah.
So if you come back from a conference or if you read or get some information and say, I want to do this for my firm, recognize that you're going to ask people to use a side of their brain that they don't really bring to work, that they
Yep.
may only have on the weekends, that they may have in another part. So I would say first, give space for people to come along. I think that's the most important thing. Recognize that it's not going to happen quickly, but if you make progress every day, every week, every month, then it will happen over time. And so just recognizing that you're asking people to do something that's very, very, very difficult. As you described it, it's very fun. Once you
Yeah.
start doing it, it's very addictive. So usually picking a couple of champions and working with the champions, picking a model client, a couple of clients. There's a lot of pushback when you look at implementing technology or implementing services. One tends to look at the worst case scenario and apply that to everyone.
Yeah.
So don't think about how you can't do this with 5 clients. Think about how you can do this with 20 or 40 or 60. And then let the edge cases take care of themselves. Maybe there's 20% of your clients you'll never be able to do this work for. You'll never be able to apply technology, but don't let that stand in the way. There's probably 80 other clients. We love the 80-20 rule, the Pareto
Yeah.
principle, that it will work for. So start trying to find ways of showing success. And once you find a way of getting people out of, I'll call it Excel hell, because Excel is used for everything, but it's a wonderful tool to explore. It's a horrible tool to consistently do things. It's just got too many ways it can go wrong. I like to say that there's errors in every spreadsheet. You just don't know where they are, and if you haven't found them, you just haven't found them yet.
Yeah.
There's always the ability to do that. The technology solutions we use, they take all that out of the way, and they let you focus on, okay, here's the actual report, here's the actual numbers. Things get done in seconds and minutes, not hours and days and weeks, and you can get to that most important piece. So showing the team members that their value is not in billable hours. This is a separate conversation about value accounting and billing and
Yeah.
all of that, but your value to the client is really not in how many hours you spend on the spreadsheet. And the client could actually care less about the spreadsheet. What they want to know is, are my sales next week, next month, next year going to be up or down? By how much? What do I need to do to ensure that? How will I know I'm not on track? And what working capital do I need to get there? That's in essence what business owners want to know. And last I checked, working capital is not really a term that accountants use very often, but it's something that's extremely valuable in the real world. So it's talking about some of those types of things.
Yeah, one of the things that you mentioned that I'd like to highlight is a principle called the wisdom pyramid. And it's essentially taking the information that we're gathering as basically data and compiling reports, information. But if we're not using that information, we don't gain the third thing, which is that knowledge level of we're actually taking the time to digest and analyze the information that we've gathered in the reports. But once we've organized that data into reports and we have that information and we're spending the time getting the knowledge we need from it, eventually you're going to get a wisdom, a sixth sense that you can actually use to anticipate and foresee things. Well, one of the things that I'd like to emphasize here as accounting professionals, when you've worked with a client as long as you have, or you've worked in the industries as long as you have, you get that sixth sense. And that enables you to move into this creative space more comfortably and meet your clients in this CFO advisory realm a lot easier. And it is that creative space. And to go to the accounting professionals within the organization, and like you were indicating, let's take a few of the creative ones and engage them with, okay, what more can we do with our clients? How can we better help them utilize this information, as you were describing, to run their businesses effectively? What we're doing is we're elevating the level of services that we're offering to this value add that we can easily bill at a much higher rate. And we step away from that billable hour because we're more valuable, not for the time we're spending on the client, but for the insights and perspectives we're bringing to the discussion. Would you agree with that?
I'll say 100%. I'd like to say 1,000% if I could. It's you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it.
I love it. All right. So you brought up technology, you brought up value add. So I've got two questions for our listeners. What is it that when you're describing your services, you explain the CFO advisory services to consist of? What are you actually selling? What are they paying for? What is it that they're excited about? And then you've brought up technology a few times. What technology are you finding is useful to help you actually provide these services? What is part of your tech stack?
So, to the first question, what we talk about is answering tomorrow's question, not yesterday's question. And that
Okay.
seems to resonate. For us, it's about moving them from instinct to insight. There's a lot of
Mm,
gut level decisions that get made, and we like to add data around that. We think the gut level decisions are very important, but the more data we can add around that, I think the better those decisions can be. We talk a lot. Our biggest pushback when we ask for business owners to estimate their sales is, what if I'm wrong? Same thing I
mm,
said before. We say, look, you don't have to tell anybody if you're wrong. You just have to get slightly better at estimating. By
yeah.
putting a number out there, you will naturally get better at it. You would
Yep.
just, you'll understand what those differences are. So I think when we have discussions, we talk about how we're sort of the anti-accountants, which in some ways is a little bit brash, but I think it's important to separate out accounting from sort of a finance function. We talk about how we're introducing the finance function into organizations and adding that. And I think for CPA firms, that's a wonderful way to frame it. And historically, you've used us for these compliance things. You've asked us to be these things for certainty. You've asked us to do these things for regulation. You've asked us to do these things for all kinds of things that mattered if they were wrong. And now we're going to move into the finance arena where we're going to naturally be wrong most of the time. But because we're estimating things, we're going to have discussions, we're going to have targets, we're going to know earlier when there's a problem because we assumed that by next week we would have X number of sales. We know that the whole month will require X times 4 or X times 4.5. But if we missed it in the first week, we can start working on that. We don't have to wait till the end of the month. So it's those kinds of conversations, and then to the technology side of things, we think the biggest bang for the buck is the reporting side. Look at everything you're doing in Excel and see if there's a technology platform out there that will automatically pull the data in, that will automatically help you craft a report. And this is where I think the creativity and also the humbling approach. You need to be a little bit humble. What you might realize is that most of the reports that you've been generating are never looked at. That they're not consumed by the client. They're just not valuable. There's too much information there, and we're visual people. Humans are very visual people. We're designed to look at patterns and see where a pattern is out of whack. Because if we're looking at the forest, if we're looking at the bushes, the foliage, if we can somehow see that there's a predator there in the midst of all that camouflage, we tend to live and win. If we miss it, we don't tend to, survive that. So we're not analyzing how many leaves are on the tree. We're looking for patterns that say there's something different in that area. I was expecting to see something, and I'm seeing something different.
Yeah.
And that's where the visual representation can really, really, really help.
I'm liking how you're describing all this. And you mentioned two things that I'd like to dive a little deeper into. One is the mindset of the accountant. For them to go from, in their minds, what accounting is, and so often it's described as the gathering of information historically to prepare these financial reports, to now, I dare say that if we're doing anything, we're probably adding to that description of what accounting is, more in line with what I think businesses expect from accounting, which is to say, therefore what? We've got all this information. What I believe we're discussing here is that question that the business owner is asking of, therefore what? How do I use this information? Forward thinking, moving ahead, planning. And if we can kind of bridge that and help them see how what we're providing to them matters and helps them be more confident in the decision making they're making as business owners, we're doing our job. But you also at the same time brought up value. You were talking about billable hours and value and so forth. So my next question is regarding basically your fees. For the listener to the show, they're wondering, I know how to perhaps price my bookkeeping, my tax preparation, maybe perhaps my accounting pretty easily, but how am I pricing my value add as it relates to this CFO advisory service that I'm providing? Just give us a ballpark, for example, what is your average client paying for these types of services, and how often are you meeting with them as it relates to servicing that?
So I will get into that, but let me first preface it by saying the amount you're going to charge is vastly more than you think you're worth. And you're going to have a hard time in your own mind justifying it, and the client will gladly pay for it.
Good point.
That you have to get ready for that, because we've all been trained to say, look, I only spent 15 minutes on that. I only spent a half an hour on that. How can I possibly charge $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,500 for it? The difference is you've spent decades building up knowledge with different clients, with different situations, with different everything. So you're not sharing 15 minutes of information. You're sharing a lifetime, an adult lifetime of professional experience that you can somehow delineate in a mere 15 minutes rather than the 73 hours it might take someone else to do. So I think that's the first mindset. Our prices are in the $1,500 to $5,000 a month range, and it varies depending on what we're doing. At the minimum, we meet monthly, go over the financials, create 3 things to focus on over the next 30 days. that we do sort of 90-day sprints. We double check every month to make sure the three things we're looking at and measuring are the right three things. If the client has missed something, we ask two big questions. Was it a question of bandwidth or a question of focus? So if you didn't get something done and it's a bandwidth issue, let's just add some more bandwidth or let's defer the goal. If it's a focus issue, that's a much more serious matter. And so why didn't the organization focus on doing these things? What change management do we need to do to get the organization or the leader to focus on these three things? There's no shortage of problems in business. I think the trick is to solve the most important ones first and then work your way down the list.
I like this. Now, I'm going to now hit on two things. One, the price range. I like where you're at because that is very similar to what I'm familiar with. Just nearly a year ago, not so much a year ago, I was at a conference. It was a number of individuals in this space offering these types of services, and a report was shared there. And it was not just the attendees, it was something prepared before the conference. And it clearly showed that the average range was about $1,500 to $3,000 a month for these types of services. This is above and beyond compliance work. And there were these outliers of $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month, and they were more niche type services that were enabling them to charge those fees. But for accounting related CFO advisory specific services, the average was $2,500 a month. So you're right in that range, and that's phenomenal. The other thing is your last summation of what our role is I think spot on. Earlier you pointed out we draw attention to those three critical areas from an accounting perspective that needs attention, but we're then asking ourselves what is going to be done. We're leaving with actionable items for the business owner to basically say, this is what they're doing. And how do we come to those? It's asking the right questions of the business owner. It's not that we're coming up with the answers. It's not our job to provide the solutions. It's more important that we're asking the right questions and helping them through this conversation get to their answer. And that's one of the key things that I think is essential for us to realize is we're not supposed to be the answer people. We're supposed to be the question people. And you alluded to that. And I think that's very important to highlight. So here's the next question that I think is very appropriate for what we're doing here is, as it relates to accounting professionals, what do you feel is holding some of us back from moving into this space confidently for our clients?
Well, I want to recognize first that, running a firm is hard and there's a lot of work to be done. And
Yeah.
especially if you're doing tax returns. Now the tax season has extended from when I was a little pup. Yeah, most tax seasons now span from about January 15th till October 15th.
Yep.
But that project work, that cyclical work is really hard on resources. And what we're talking about here is, working on your business and not working in your business to implement this. And then it's deceptively hard, like we talked about from a change management perspective. And so I think the reason why a lot of these initiatives get stalled or don't go somewhere is because there's not the proper bandwidth within the organization to properly do it. It shouldn't fall at the hands of the partner. It should be someone in the manager level, the senior staff accountant level. Rarely can it be the staff accountant who loves technology, who, you talk about retention among staff members. Introduce technology and new things to the younger folks in the organization. They will stay with you. That's what they're looking to do. They're not looking to do the spreadsheet the same way you did it 20 years ago. They know
Yeah.
intrinsically there's a better way, and they'll jump around until they find that particular firm that's helping them do that. They want to learn. So it's a combination of bottom up and top down, but not so much of the leader. It's got to be someone that's in the trenches that can really monitor it and encourage people over and over again. Please don't double check the report that was automatically generated with your own spreadsheet. Please stop doing that. We know it's right. It's proven right. And you're not paid to make sure that the report is right. You're paid to make sure that the report gets disseminated. You're paid to ask the questions. I'm glad you brought up the question asking point. The
Mhm.
preparation we do for our meetings is deceptively minimal. The value that we add is the fact that we come to the meetings without all the noise of everything that happened during the month at our clients. We have
Yeah.
no idea what we're supposed to be finding in the financials. We just know what we're finding in the financials, and don't underestimate your value as that 30,000 foot. I don't know what these are supposed to say, so I'm going to look at things and try and find what I see with a fresh point of view. If you've been influenced all month by, well, I know sales are down for this one client, or I know that the supplier raised prices, and so we're going to have bad margins. If you expect to have margin erosion, then you're going to, I guess, be okay with it when it happens. Whereas we might look at it and say, hey, you lost 2 points on margin. Oh, yeah, the supplier really threw us for a loop. Yeah, but that's the fourth month in a row we've lost points on margin. And so I don't think it's a supplier issue. What else could it be? We're not paid to find out what it is. The clients always know the answer. They
Yeah.
do. It's just hidden from them in the chaos and the clutter of everything else. Our job is just to find those couple of things that really matter and distill it down into some action items.
You are so wise to point that out, because it's through that conversation that they will have that epiphany. And all of a sudden, it's clear to them what their actions need to be moving forward. And it's simply because we ask those right questions. They come to the right conclusions. They know their business. They are the ones that are the experts in the room. We just need to help them kind of through that noise, quiet things down and draw attention to what needs to be discussed. And it's those 3 or so items that you'd mentioned at the beginning. So I love how we're wrapping this all together. Get your copy of Red to Black. It is the book written for accounting professionals to help businesses turn around and go from being in the red to being in the black. This book is written for consultants, business owners, operators, and managers. No matter what your client's product or service, or irrespective of your talent, skill, or expertise, as an accounting professional, you'll be able to use the principles presented in this book to actually become, for your clients, the profit and growth expert. Every chapter is filled with principles and concepts that you can use immediately with your clients to lead them from being in the red to being more profitable in their business, and see you as, in fact, their guide, their coach, with the expertise and wisdom that you can bring from this book. In the book, you have how-to guide explanations. You have models that you can follow. You're shown how to actually calculate and determine the fees for your services, the actual model that you'll use during the implementation of all this, and most importantly, the end-all results with your clients. Get this book now and see what it is you can do to offer this new revenue-producing service as, in fact, the profit and growth expert. For more information on how you can take advantage of this offer, go to the episode description and there get the information you need to take advantage of this today. So, Ken, I do want to ask some questions here as we're wrapping things up. As it relates to your business, clearly you went out on your own. You're an entrepreneur starting your business. You've been involved with sales of businesses, helping with exit strategies and so forth. I'm curious, being an entrepreneur, what is that guiding light, that mantra? Perhaps it's a quote that you use that helps you actually stay focused in your business so that you occasionally can work on your own business.
Well, I think it's our sort of our mission, which is really, we feel like, unfortunately, and through no fault of either side, accounting lets business owners down. And we feel like accounting can rise to the occasion, and we feel business owners can really use accounting to make better decisions. So it's that mission of providing that. That's what guides us.
I like that. That is very good. As it relates to your personal life, what are you grateful for?
I'm grateful for the opportunity to have lived long enough to share my experiences. I'm very grateful for each day we're on this earth, and I've been through the ringer, and it's really helpful to share the successes and the failures. I've learned far more from my failures than I've learned from my successes, and I'm just pleased at this age to be able to share those with as many people as possible.
That is very nice. What does the word freedom mean to you?
I describe consulting as tremendous freedom and no free time. So for me, freedom means the ability to choose, but always being mindful of service, always being mindful of providing things, always being mindful of delivering things. So to me, freedom is the ability to make choices, moment to moment, but recognizing that there's an awful lot of things that need to get done, and we're driven to do those things from a sense of duty.
Very nice. What is it that you do in your free time to recharge? How do you decompress?
I'm fanatical about health and mindset and all that's happening in the wellness space, and how business owners can add bandwidth by defogging their brains and by focusing on nutrition, and I love bringing some additional things to our clients, not just the financials, but also talking a little bit about how can they create more focus and bandwidth through nutrition, exercise, new approaches to things in their whole team.
I love that. I'm glad that you brought up nutrition and health, and it's both mental and physical. I think that's very, very important. So I'm curious, do you have a go-to food item or meal that you enjoy?
I've been fortunate enough to talk to a lot of people in this space, and most of them will tell you, I would write a book, except it would have to be a book focused on each individual. I don't think there really is one thing. I've been at this for 24 years, understanding nutrition, understanding exercise, understanding wellness. And I can tell you that even I struggle with what I should have for breakfast tomorrow. If I should have
Yeah,
breakfast at all. Should I fast for 16 hours, 12 hours? Should I have 3 meals? Should I snack? Should it be, carbs? Should it be protein? Should it be keto? Should it be Mediterranean? There's just so much information out there that what I've come to the conclusion, look at your genes, look where you came from. And that'll give you I think the best direction as to where your body probably likes to be. Because you might have migrated here from somewhere else, but the plants that we grow here, the things that we do here or there, may not be what your body is expecting from all those prior generations. That's the best I
very
can
good.
tell you. I have no idea if I'm right or wrong.
Very good advice. Well, from two non-nutritionalists, there you go.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think we've hit some excellent highlights for my listeners. Let me go ahead and start wrapping this up. And as I do so, I'm going to come back to you for a closing thought. For my listeners, I do want to mention that if you would like, Ken has been very kind to actually point out that on his website you can find some time to reach out to him if you'd like more information, or perhaps to debrief with him. So definitely go to his website, insightfulpartners.com, and you can get some information there. This will be provided in the episode description, so I'd encourage you to check that out. In addition, I want you to go to the episode description and find out about the Accountrepreneurs Challenge. This is the challenge that we're offering to you so that you can actually work on both your personal and your professional mindsets. It's where you can actually address things that personally you're doing to have the premier accounting firm in your business, in your area, as well as professionally, what it is you can be doing to offer these quality accounting services to your clients confidently. So I encourage you to go to the Accountrepreneurs Challenge found in the episode description. It is a free 90-day challenge that I encourage you to participate in. You're going to find in there some hidden gems to enable you to actually build the premier accounting firm in your area. And I encourage you to check it out. It's the Accountrepreneurs Challenge in the episode description. And then with regards to today's conversation, I want to invite you to check out a book called Your Strategic Accountant. It's here that we talk about moving beyond compliance work and offering CFO and advisory services and what that would look like for your clients. What is it that you could actually do to further enhance what you're now doing with your clients so that they can get the additional value from the client interactions they're having with you? So check out the book, Your Strategic Accountant. Now, with all that said, let me do a quick summary of our conversation. Thoroughly enjoyed the fact that Ken, with his thorough background in accounting, transitioned to now the CFO and advisory space. And I enjoyed that narrative as he explained how he transitioned over there. I enjoyed the fact that we were able to define what CFO and advisory services is. It's beyond the compliance work. What we're focusing on is essentially that interaction with the client where we highlight the three key things that are going on in the business that they need to address now. It's moving the accounting from the historical into the real time, and then focusing on the creative side of accounting where we're forecasting into the future. We're looking at how good can that historical information that we've compiled help us best predict the future. And in this part of the conversation, we discussed what is it that we're doing with our clients. We're meeting with them so that they can actually hear the questions that enable them to get the insights and the ahas that they need to find those actionable items that they need to be focusing on as they run their business. The other thing I enjoyed was, as we were talking about this, we talked about what this interaction looks like. He pointed out that it's a monthly meeting. He's averaging that range of 1,000 to 3,000, as I pointed out. He's fortunate that he has clients paying as much as 5,000. But we pointed to the idea that this is not hourly billing. This is a value add. And honestly, this is something that you're paid for the wealth of experience and knowledge you've acquired over your career. It's not the 10, 15 minutes, as he pointed out, that we're actually focusing on. It's more the years of experience that got you to the point that you have the wisdom and insights to now share this perspective with your clients. And you're being paid for all that time and effort that have previously gone into you getting this skill and confidence. The other thing I liked was how we were able to point out what he is grateful for. There is so much for all of us to be grateful for, and I encourage you to consider as you're hearing this what it is that you're grateful for. And then clearly the idea of freedom, and then we spoke on nutrition. I've recently lost nearly 50 pounds. It's all because of diet and exercise. I'm not an expert as a nutritionist, but I can definitely tell you that when you make it a priority, your life does change and improve. And it is something that we only have this one vessel that we're living within. And if we take advantage of it, it's going to catch up to us. If we take care of it, it'll be more long lasting. That's what I'm hoping for. So loved what we were talking about here, Ken. What would you like to leave as a final thought?
I just want the business owners and the CPA firm owners to recognize that what's needed is something different than what traditional accounting has provided at this smaller level, at the private company level. And you're just in such a great position to deliver it. And I like you to think of it as your duty to do so rather than just keep doing the same thing that accounting's done for all these years or decades.
Well said. Well said. Well, I think we're all evolving and changing. And as an accounting profession, we need to evolve. And so this is something that I'm hoping everyone's being inspired to do as they look back over the services that they're offering to their clients currently and see what more you can do to perhaps move into that CFO advisory space. Maybe this is that motivation you needed to make that change. And more importantly, if you're already there, maybe consider how best you can be doing this as a service. So wonderfully said. Ken, thank you for being on the show. For my listeners, if you haven't already subscribe to the podcast. We'd love to have you as a regular listener. We release new episodes each and every Wednesday. Love to have you actually here to see these conversations and, more importantly, get these actionable items that you can apply in your business. For those of you who are also listening, I want to invite you to the highlights or playlist that we've compiled. This is basically a collection of over 300 episodes that I've now had. Those 300 episodes, we've pulled the highlights, the ones that are both my favorites and those of our listeners, and we've compiled them into playlists that you can binge listen. So I invite you to go to universalaccounting.com, and at Universal Accounting, you can find in the navigation the podcast section where we literally have the highlights. Those are organized based on marketing, selling, pricing, mental health, tech stacks, training staff, onboarding clients, just a variety of topics that you want to dive into that you can hear from the experts what it is that they're saying about those specific areas that relate to you today. So go check those out. In addition, I want to invite you to GrowCon. GrowCon is an annual conference where we actually invite the experts to the stage to teach us and share with us what it is we should be doing to work on our business. It's here at GrowCon. You can also meet your peers. These are collaborations that you can have, friendships that you can build. Why? Because these are people like you who are working on building their own successful bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses. You can actually get the connections you need to work on your business and perhaps even better service your clients through collaborations. These are connections you will not regret. And oftentimes people come to the conference and feel that this was perhaps their greatest takeaway from the entire conference itself. Lastly, I'd like to point out that you'll meet my staff, myself included, those individuals who are committed to helping you be in business for yourself, but not by yourself. So come and join us at GrowCon. Go to universalaccounting.com, and there in the navigation, you'll find the link to the event, the specific details of the wins and the wheres, and most importantly, the ability to get your ticket. So get your ticket today, and I look forward to seeing you at GrowCon. Lastly, as it relates to the show, this is sponsored by Universal Accounting Center. If you'd like more information regarding the trainings and programs that we offer, go to universalaccountingschool.com. There you'll find the various curriculums that are meant for you as the owner of the firm, as well as trainings for your staff to help them become professional bookkeepers, professional tax preparers, profit and growth experts. These are all skill-based training programs to enable you to offer confidently these various services and get paid what you're worth. Now, with all that being said, obviously, I want to thank you for your time. If you'd like more information, definitely go to Universal Accounting School or give us a phone call at 801-265-3777. And always remember this, accounting success is universal. Take care and be safe out there.